Hi there, welcome to episode 51 of Paranormal Blip. Now, you can probably hear in my voice that I'm not quite on my, A voice. I'm using my B voice today because I've been ill, man. Oh, God, it's such a drag. I absolutely hate being ill, but it's nothing serious. I thought it was COVID, actually. I did 2 COVID tests about 4 or 5 days apart. Essentially, it's just a rough cough and cold, and I feel quite lethargic as well. But I did end my time working in the place where I worked. So as you may know, I used to work with Stephen. I gave up that job for another job that I start in a couple of weeks' time. And so we're all exhausted in that job, so I kind of expected that I would be hit a little bit by a kind of illness. That team of people, by the way, I mean, they were the best team of people ever, and I'm really going to miss those guys that I work with. And the manager was the best manager I've ever had. There's no question about that. So this new job, you're going to have your work cut out. New job. Anyway, it's really hit me for six, this thing, and you can hear my voice, can't you? The difference in my voice. Nevertheless, I'm on the antibiotics, so it won't be, a kind of long-term thing, thankfully. Um, having said that, this is going to be a bit of a short show because of that, really. I'm going to do a tiny little recommendation for news, and I'm going to review Arrival. But I'm also going to put up 2 subscription episodes as well, back to back. Because of my illness, I didn't manage to get one last week out. So I'm going to put episode 2 out and also episode 3 out as well. Now, episode 2 is a review of 3,000 Years of Longing, the George Miller film. I talk about Miller, and I talk about Joseph Campbell, and I talk about gin in that review. And then episode 3 of the subscription service is my review of June, which I absolutely love. And it's another Villeneuve film. Arrival is by Villeneuve, isn't it? Denis Villeneuve. Do you say Denis? I think maybe you do, because he's French Canadian. So maybe I'm correctly pronouncing his surname there, his first name there. But I really love June a lot. I love Arrival. It's big time, man. But if you're interested in listening to those, then go to the episode description for the subscription. And join us. Thank you so much, by the way, to everyone that has subscribed. It's very heartening and wonderful, and I can't apologize enough for not giving you an episode last week. I should have really said 4 episodes a month, so I will say 4 episodes a month from now on, because if I'm ill for a week, then I'm a bit snooking, aren't I? Yeah. Anyway, we're going to go into the news, and look who's turned up.
We have major breaking news, indeed historic breaking news right now.
Paranormal Blip
is in New York for us covering this story. What are you learning?
Thanks, Wolf. I'm not sure if I live up to your billing. Anyway, it's very busy here. I'm not in New York, by the way. I'm in Devon. You always get that wrong, don't you? Wolf. So listen, yeah, Peter and the Wolf, yeah. Listen, Wolf and everyone else. The thing is, it's not really a news section. So, talk about overhype it, Wolf. Nevertheless, I did think that I would recommend that you watch this amazing AMA, Ask Me Anything, that Jeffrey Mishlove done a couple of days ago. Jeffrey Mishlove, he was the winner of the Bix essay competition that your man did, Bigelow did a couple of years ago, yeah? And Jeffrey Mishlove, he does New Thinking Aloud. And before that, he did Thinking Aloud. And Thinking Aloud was on television, and New Thinking Aloud is on YouTube. And he's been in this game for a long, long time. And it's just extraordinary when you watch him in these Ask Me Anything sessions. He had 22 pages of questions, and I think he got onto page, 5 or something. It's ridiculous, but the questions are really good. And his just the reservoir of knowledge and experience that he has, that he draws on, is really quite something. You know, it's absolutely extraordinary. And the last couple of days, I've been looking into this. One of the many, many extraordinary cases he talks about is this case of a chess game that went on for a good number of years, I think 5 or 6 years, between a former grandmaster that died and another grandmaster that was alive. This was in the early 80s. And so, yeah, this chess game kind of happened through a spiritual medium. So it's absolutely extraordinary case, and it's one of many, many cases that Jeffrey talks about. And so it's not news. It's very quiet actually. What's going on? It's very quiet. Everyone's saying April's going to be the month, of the hearings, but we haven't heard anything yet. Of course, there is massive big news. The day I speak to you is the day that Trump is up in court on the charge. We don't exactly know what the charges are yet. It's a couple of hours before his arraignment, and I'm very much. I think that I probably will do a podcast not connected to this one in any way, but it will be connected to. It will be like tracking the US and the UK elections that are both due next year, which would be very good fun, won't it? Yeah. So there may be some people, some old social distancers out there, if you know what I mean, who might be interested in listening to that as well. But anyway, this isn't Trump zone, thank God. So I'm not going to talk about that. So although there's actually massive news in the world, there's not that much big news in the in UAP world or the kind of paranormal world. But I thought that it's probably worth my time and effort to forward you on to Jeffrey, and you can enjoy Jeffrey. So just jump into the episode description for a link to Jeffrey. And okay, back to you, Wolf.
Very dramatic development.
So Arrival, I'm going to go straight spoilerific, okay? Oh, actually, first of all, if you don't know Arrival, you got to see Arrival, okay? Now, this isn't a spoiler because this is the audio of the trailer. Here is the trailer for Arrival.
There are days that define your story beyond your life. Like the day they arrived.
Signs of what might be called first contact. The objects measure at least.
I'm Colonel G.T. Weber from Army Intelligence. Pack your bags. You're at the top of everyone's list when it comes to translations. Priority 1. What do they want? Where are they from? You'll be reporting to me, but you'll be working with him when you're in the show.
That's what they call in the UFO.
Who's being carted off in the medevac?
Not everyone is wired for what you're about to do.
So what do they look like?
You'll see soon enough.
Every 18 hours, a door opens up. That's where we go in.
It's done. Yeah, that just happened.
What happens now?
They arrive.
They need to see me.
Dr. Banks? Are you insane?
Now that's a proper introduction.
More objects have landed around the world.
This is one of 12. I'm never going to be able to speak their words.
Got 2 days. Figure something out.
I am human. It's their language. We need to make sure that they understand the difference between a weapon and a tool. Language is messy, and sometimes one can be both.
Are you dreaming in their language? It's possible they're prodding us to fight among ourselves.
This is just a way to force us to work together for once.
It's more complicated than that.
How is it more complicated?
Russia just executed one of their own to keep their secret.
Got 21 hours.
Before they start global war.
So how do we clarify their intentions?
I go back in.
Why does this feel worse?
So there it is. It sounds very exciting, doesn't it? Yeah. So Arrival, it came out in 2016. It's directed by Denis Villeneuve, and it's adapted from this really interesting short story that I'm going to talk a little bit about, called "Story of Your Life" by this guy called Ted Chiang. I think his surname is pronounced Chang. Hopefully it is. Ted Chiang. And yeah, I absolutely loved it. I mean, I really loved Enemy, which is this other Villeneuve film, which is quite a mysterious film, slight kind of sense of the paranormal, and there's a bit of kind of phenomena stuff in there. But right from the very beginning, when I saw that trailer that you've just heard, I was absolutely hooked. Amy Adams, I love Amy Adams. She's fantastic. I've never been a Renner head, to tell you the truth, and it's wonderful that he's making a recovery. Extraordinary, really, that he, managed to recover that snowplow accident and wasn't crushed by it. It's really amazing. So, I do obviously that kind of warms you to somebody, doesn't it? Don't you think? When they are nearly crushed by a snowplow. So I do like Renault in this film. I always thought he's quite a good actor. He's quite good in The Town, isn't he? But the Marvel movies, he's one of the least. Um, he's just a bit boring compared to your Iron Man and Thor and Spider-Man and all those guys. The Hulk. The Hulk's my favorite. I love the Hulk. And anyway, nevertheless, Forrest Whitaker, though, I absolutely love. I'm a big Forrest head. I've been a Forrest head for years now, since that film Way of the Samurai. Who was that guy? Was that Jim Jarmusch? Is that a Jim Jarmusch film? Way of the Samurai? Yeah. Anyway, so I'm a Forrest head and I'm an Amy head. Amy is amazing in The Master, as an example of one of the many films that Amy has been amazing in. So I was very excited by this film, basically, is what I'm saying. Now, I'm going to go into spoilers, basically now, okay? So if you haven't seen the film, then let's get going on seeing the film. So press pause, go to your video store, and come back when you watch the movie. Right. So it's based on this short story of your life, okay, by Ted Chiang. Now, this is really interesting because there are some differences, okay, but essentially it's the same story. The characters, Louise has got the same name. For some reason in the film, they changed the name of the Renner character from Gary in the story to Ian, which I'm not sure why anybody would change their name to Ian. I mean, that doesn't really ring true. But nevertheless, it was a spec script by this guy called what's his name? Eric Hesserer. Hope that I'm pronouncing that correct. Eric Hesserer, yeah, I think. And so, essentially, it seems to me that he read the short story, he loved it, and he thought, "Cool, I can make a film out of this," and wrote the script, and it got picked up. It got nominated for a Academy Award. That script, and it did pretty well in terms of nominations. Only got one for sound editing, which is not that surprising for this kind of film, but it's I think it's a remarkable film, and it says a lot about some people's experiences when they have close encounters. Okay, if you see it as a close encounter film, then I think you'll appreciate it a lot. And also, it's a film where you go in, and this is spoiler, right? Okay, you go in realizing, now, if you haven't seen the film, you need to see the film, right? This is it. When you watch the film again, watch Arrival again, and then you realize, okay, that it's all about grief. Okay, it's all about knowing that those you love are going to die. Okay, Abbott and Costello, right? Abbott his death process. For Abbott, it was a suicide mission. Yeah. Costello knew that Abbott would not survive. Of course he knew, because he can see 3,000 years in the future. He can see everything. They can see everything, I don't want to gender Abbott and Costello, So what's going on there then? They have decided to come to Earth in order to get in contact with Louise, for Louise to get in contact with General Chang, and for the situation to be resolved, okay? For it to be a zero-sum game. So Louise is going through grief, and a kind of burden, like a real metaphysical burden that you don't see every day in, films about essentially a kind of well, it's not really an alien invasion film, but it's certainly, and talking about that, June, absolutely beautiful in terms of the old spaceships coming down, amazing. Anyway, this isn't the June the June review. So, but it's it's a sci-fi, essentially big budget sci-fi film. It's not a Marvel film, but at the same time, it is, a kind of Hollywood A-lister. I think it's fair to say that even at that point, Villeneuve, or maybe not, maybe this is the one that really made him an A-lister. Yeah, maybe. But nevertheless, it's a big budget film, isn't it? It's a big budget Hollywood film, and you don't expect in films like this for there to be such a kind of understanding of grief. So you've got this character who Amy plays, Louise, has this kind of understanding, this existential dread that she has, and this decision that she knows that she is going to take, which I'll get to in a minute. And then you've got General Chang, who is grieving for his wife, okay? And then, or at least certainly, if not grieving from, kind of like the repercussions of his wife's death is, kind of fundamental to who he is and the decisions he makes. And then you've got your man, your creature. It's an Irish thing, isn't it? Your man. Yeah, I'm Irish. If I told you I'm Irish, well, I am Irish. You got your man Abbott and your man Costello there, yeah? And so they have decided to participate in this extraordinary adventure to Earth in order to ask the humans for help, because 3,000 years later, 3,000 years of longing, talk about 3,000 years of longing, hey, subscription alert. The humans are going to help them, okay? So they know the score, okay? And Abbott knows the score. Even before he goes, he knows that this is it. This is the end. And he realizes that he has to be a part of it. What the hell is wrong with me? They have to be a part of it. And, they are kind of, like signed up, signed, still delivered. Squidding your signature here, and then we go, right? So the idea that you have got a time when your child is going to die is absolutely terrifying, okay? If you know when you are going to die, that's one thing. If you know when your partner is going to die, or your friends or whatever, that's another thing. Of course, it's different for if you know when your child is going to die, especially if you know that before they're born. And this is the situation that Louise finds herself in. This is the absolute extraordinary Shakespearean dilemma that she finds herself in. Does she commit and decide to give birth to a daughter who, at the age of 22, will die? What are you going to do? That's an incredible question. So I absolutely love this film, and I love that idea, and it's a very, very difficult thing to get your head around. Now, zero-sum game. Let's talk about zero-sum game. This is the scene where you may remember the daughter is like, I don't know, like teenager. You get the impression that she's like doing homework maybe, and she says to her mum, um, what's uh the phrase that means like each partner is satisfied? And Amy says compromise, and she says no, no, not that, no, something else, like they're in competition. And she says win-win, and she says no, 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 something more sciencey than that. And Amy says, well, if you want science, call your father. And then the daughter goes upstairs, not really in a huff, but you get the slight huff, a slight huff, yeah. And you get the instant regret from Amy, who's a remarkable actor. What happens then is that is a future scene, and at this point in the film, we have found that the editing is going from the future scenes with the daughter to the present scenes where Louise and Ian are trying to work out what's going on with the alien language, yeah. And it's going back and forth from future to present. Now, in the present scene, it's quite tense because things are being shut down, because the Russians they've just executed someone in their team for leaking something about what General Chang is going to do. I think that's the case. Yeah, I think that's the case. And so it's very tense, and Louise and Ian are trying to work out, like, how can we keep this open? What can we do? And Louise says, well, listen, I think I've cracked it. And they say, well, nobody's going to be listening to you. Like, what can you offer them? And then Ian says, well, we can offer our research. Yeah, we can open everything up and offer what we found. It's a zero-sum game, he says. He doesn't say it like that because Ramona's a better actor than me. But she just remembers, oh my God, zero-sum game. That's what I was thinking of when I was in the future with my daughter, like 15 years from now or whatever, 16, 17 years from now. And then she then says, in the future, 17 years later, zero-sum the game. And the daughter says, yeah, oh yeah, that's it. That's what I was thinking of. Thanks, Mom. She doesn't say thanks, Mom. And so it's at that moment when you realize that the present and the future have bled into each other. And it is absolutely brilliantly done, okay? I think I've done a better job of explaining it really badly with a cough and a cold. But, apart from me talking it through, really amazing work by everyone involved there. So well done, Villeneuve and everyone else. And but it's absolutely brilliant, And then you realize that she has a kind of understanding of her life circularly, yeah, and that she can not only that, but talk about biolocation. Do you remember that episode with J Christopher King, with his stream of reality, the biolocation conversation we had? That was a good one, wasn't it? Yeah. And in that, he was saying about biolocation. Well, this is a kind of, biolocation in regards to time, whereby she can flip out into other timelines, essentially, like in her head, in her kind of consciousness, whenever she wants, or I mean, not that she has control of it, actually, though. So not whenever she wants, but certainly she kind of has this thing, and it seems like it's being led by the alien presence. Yeah, certainly being kind of curated by the alien presence, because they know where they've got to get her. And they've got to get her on a telephone while she's running around the kind of the compound where with people chasing her with guns, so she can phone Cheng. Yeah. Now, just before we get to that scene with Cheng, General Cheng, it reminds me very strongly of that Lost episode, probably the best ever Lost episode, which is called The Constant, which has got Desmond in it. Do you remember that episode of The Constant? So this is the one with Desmond and was it Penelope, wasn't it? Yeah, Penelope, that's it. Yeah. And that is a brilliant episode. And essentially with that, it's a very similar thing whereby you've got well, what do you have? You've got Desmond basically kind of flips into another kind of time in his life. Yep. And then he kind of keeps flipping in and out of points of his life. And he needs to find a constant within this. And so the constant is his is kind of the love of his life, who I think is called Penelope. Yeah, I think it is, isn't it? Yeah, Penelope Widmore, that's it, yeah. So that's good. Oh God, I need to watch Lost again. I watched Lost very recently, actually. Yeah, I mean only a few years ago, like the whole thing, But it's definitely really good. And anyway, The Constant is definitely the best episode of Lost. Well, maybe not, but there's some very strong episodes of Lost. I'm definitely a Lost head. Anyway, so The Constant. So I'm not sure what came first or whatever in terms of that idea. But certainly the idea of the telephone call is very much like it's very similar to, Desmond and Penelope at the end of that episode. Yeah. So let's talk about the telephone call because this is really interesting here. The telephone call is that in the present, Louise realizes what she has to do. Okay. But she's been informed by the future. And in the future, she, like 18 months in the future, she is attending some kind of event connected to her book, I imagine. Or maybe it isn't connected to her book, but she's at least attending an event, and General Chang is there. And General Chang says to her, you're the reason for this unification. And she says, oh, yeah, how come? Well, because you called me on my private number. Yeah. I mean, you know this. You've seen the film. I don't know why I'm talking you through it, but that is that scene. Yeah. And again, we see where the future, has an effect on her present. Okay. Brilliantly, he shows her the phone number on his phone, and then she just like remembers it and then dials it. It's like very simple, absolutely brilliant, brilliantly done. And there's something extraordinary about him saying that she told him the words that his dying wife told him when she was dying, her final words just before she passed away. There is nothing more intimate than that. And there is nothing more makes you realize that, humanity and every life is absolutely paper thin, absolutely fragile. And, we have no idea about where we're at in terms of our own mortality. Okay. And if you've ever been present when somebody you love dies, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about here. Yeah. It's extraordinary, mind-bending, absolutely life-changing moment. Hopefully it'll only happen a couple of times in everyone's life because, I wouldn't recommend it. But it's like totally intimate, absolutely intimate moment. And for him to realize that that's the thing that he has to share with her, having heard it from her, of course, from his point of view, it says a lot about the things that connects Chang with every other human. Okay. Because at that moment, we see the bad guy in the film, become a representation of all of us, become somebody that is vulnerable and somebody that is essentially vulnerable to death, vulnerable to the mystery that death allows. Okay. So it's an absolute, spellbinding, brilliant moment in the film. So, yeah, there we go. So grief and this sense of, if you knew when your child would die, would you still agree to have the child. And that's the only reason why I think that there's the only justification I can think of for Jeremy Renner's character, Ian, to say that very clunky line, let's make a baby, or whatever he says, let's have a baby together. No, I think he does say literally, let's make a baby. So that's not good. Yeah, it's not a good line. But I think the reason why they made it so obvious and clunky like that is that we'd remember that, and we would then realize, oh my God, this is actually a decision that she made. It's an intention to have the child, but also an intention for her to decide not to tell Ian this whole picture. Now, if I was her, I would sit down with him and say, listen, pal. Like, before I even kissed him, or maybe after I kissed him, have a bit of a kiss with Vanna first. And then I'd say, listen, pal. Before we go on any further, there's something I need to tell you. Yeah. And then I'd just lay it all out. And I'd say, so, it is under those conditions that if we have a child together, they're going to die at 22 years old. And she didn't say that. And no wonder he got angry. And no wonder she thought that she had done something wrong. And I agree with her. She did do something wrong. Because after a little kiss with Jeremy Renner, I would tell him that our child would die at 22. So there we go. So, Arrival. Absolute 5 out of 5 material. No doubt about it. 10 out of 10. Maybe not 100 out of 100. I'm not sure if there is a 100 out of 100 film. If it's not E.T., it's not going to be Arrival, is it? No. But yeah, pretty good. I mean, very, very good. Very, very, very good. I actually think I like Dune better, though, for some reasons. But I think what it does do very well is plug into the kind of oddness of a kind of contact experience. Yeah, in a really interesting, very kind of intellectually meaty way. So yeah, I highly recommend Arrival. So thanks very much for listening to this short episode. If you're interested in listening to the reviews for, well, what do we got there? We got 3,000 Years of Longing, and we've got Dune, and also we've got E.T. as well, okay, which is the first one. Then subscribe to Paranormal Blip, 99p for 4 episodes a month. As you see, it's good, isn't it? I can adapt and change. And yeah, episode 52 will be around the corner. Hopefully next week. I'm sure it will be next week. So thanks ever so much for your support. Obviously, you can track me down on Twitter at Paranormal Blip on Twitter. Thank you so much for everybody that is following me and subscribing on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. And thank you ever so much for generally supporting the show. Generally. I haven't mentioned Instagram either, which I will do now. Instagram what is it? Paranormal _podcast _blip. No, paranormal _blip _podcast. There we go. Instagram. You're happy now. Yeah. Yeah, happy now. Yeah. Anyway. See you later.